Hello and welcome to the AIDEM Risala Update interactions once again. We have Paranjoy Guha Thakurtha, Senior Economic Affairs Investigative Journalist, with us again. And of course, the last few days, according to Paranjoy, has been very momentous in relation to a very major investigation that he has been doing for very many years on the Adani empire. And the United States government has imposed federal charges on Adani, and it is a beginning. I mean, it's a kind of conviction, and it is something where where concrete action is expected. But we have not seen any concrete action either from the US side or from the Indian side. But Paranjoy has been writing and talking over the last few days, saying that this is a very important development and that Adani's invincibility has been questioned by this order. Paranjoy, you have been saying this, but then we have not seen any concrete action either from the US or from India. But then how can you say that this invincibility is now being questioned?
My short answer to you would be, it's early days. It was on the 21st of November that we got to know that two agencies of the government of the United States of America, the Department of Justice and the Securities and Exchange Commission. The Securities and Exchange Commission is supposed to oversee the working of the financial markets in the US. And both these organizations, the DOJ and the SEC, have based their allegations, their charges, on an investigation done by the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, which is like, in India, it's like the Central Bureau of Investigation. It's the apex body in the US. Now, why do I say this is very significant? It's not a journalist. It's not even a journalistic organization like, say, the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project, which has put out several reports on Adani. It's not like individual journalists, including me, who have been writing about the group. It is not even like the Hindenburg Research Report.
Which that also doesn't have any...
No, it was 30,000 words. But Hindenburg Research is a short seller.
Yeah.
They gamble on the stock markets. They say so openly.
Yeah.
That report that came out in January 2003, it had this sensational headline that the Adani Group was pulling the largest con in corporate history. And at that time, he was the third richest man in the world. Why is this significant? These are not investigative reports. These are not legally... government agencies. Now you're saying you see no action. You don't expect action to happen so far. The raid that took place on Gautam Adani's nephew in the United States took place more than a year and a half ago. To be precise, on the 17th of March, 2023. So it's taken from 17th of March, when I suppose the FBI got evidence that they claimed would be very, very significant or clinching or damning. It's taken them 1.5 years to put together what in India we would call a charge sheet, what they called a grand jury subpoena. The difference is, in India you have one judge or a bench of judges. Here you have a judge and a large number of people who comprise the jury.
Yeah.
And secondly, what we are also seeing is that we have an arrest warrant issued against Mr. Gautam Adani, his nephew Sagar Adani, Vineet Jain, one of their associates, and four other people who are allegedly associated with this corruption scandal.
Right.
So we have to wait and watch. Mr. Gautam Adani has said we have not violated the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act of 1977. So what? They've referred to the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, but the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act does not apply to Mr. Adani or his nephew or his associates. So it's like saying, somebody has charged you with offense A under one act, and you say, no, I haven't been charged under offense B in another act. So it's a way of trying to divert attention and boost his stock markets.
Yeah.
You know, so when
in fact, when you wrote about this, you have said that that you have noticed, or rather taken note of the drop in stock prices of the Adani Group, which we saw immediately after the proclamation of the arrest warrant. But then now it has gone up again. It is so how does that mechanism work?
See, why are you trying to understand? Why are you trying to look at what has happened, and the indictment, and the charges, and the arrest warrant from the stock markets? I mean, the stock markets go up, the stock markets come down. One day it will go up for a particular reason, one day it will go down for another reason. It may be something in the US, it may be something in India, it may depend on the purchase and the sale decisions of major institutional investors that include associates of the State Bank of India, India's largest bank, your bank, my bank, or the Life Insurance Corporation of India, which is your Life Insurance Corporation and mine.
Yeah.
So why you should not try and examine the gravity of the allegations from whether the stock markets go up or not. Please understand, Mr. Adani, and by the way, not just Mr. Adani, senior lawyers like Mr. Mukul Rohatgi, he is a former Attorney General of India.
Yeah.
And by the way, he has also represented Mr. Adani in tribunals.
Yeah.
Or you look at Mr. Mahesh Jethmalani. He's a member of parliament belonging to in the Rajya Sabha belonging to the BJP.
Yeah.
Now, these are senior lawyers. But what are they saying? That he hasn't been charged under the FCPA. So what? If you go through what was the first statement, the first official statement that came from the Adani Group in the form of a statement made to the stock exchanges in this country, like the National Stock Exchange, like the Bombay Stock Exchange. What did it say? They said clearly that we haven't been charged under the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, but there is an indictment. And what is this indictment? He has been accused of fraud, of conspiracy, of wire fraud. What is wire fraud? That means you've put out false information or incorrect information using the electronic mail within the US and outside the US. And what are these charges? That you did not disclose to your investors in the US and also in India.
Right.
That you were being examined by the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, and the FBI had raided your relative, and these are what they say information that is not just price sensitive, so it's material. So if you are an investor in the US and you don't know this information, then as per the laws of the United States, you have not played it, the playing field is not level, you haven't played it fair. I'll just give you one more point. This whole FCPA business, 1977 Act, Donald Trump hates it. More than once, Mr. Trump, who is going to become the President of the United States of America on the 20th of January, he said this is a horrible act because it disadvantages American businessmen. Why? Because the act says you can pay, anybody anywhere can pay a bribe, but if it has an impact on a US entity, a corporate entity or a citizen, it becomes, you're violating the law.
Yeah.
It also says it's not just whether you proved somebody has bribed A or B or C, a conspiracy to bribe or a promise to bribe is also an offense under the Act. So this is really what has happened. So what we should be actually examining is what were the corruption charges and why are Indian agencies not doing anything about it?
Right.
Essentially, what are the corruption charges? You have a public sector organization, and this organization is called the Solar Energy Corporation of India. It is a central public sector organization. It comes under the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. Now, they floated tenders, and two of these tenders were obtained, one by Adani, a company in the Adani Group, and another company which was called Azure Power, which has investments by a Canadian pension fund. And by the way, there is reason to believe that individuals who are associated with Azure Power blew the whistle.
Right.
But that's another story. I can come to it if you want me to examine it. So you've given a contract to them. So Azure Power and Adani are generating solar power. Now you have to sell that power. No? It's not enough to generate it. If there's nobody to
Buy it.
what's the use?
Yeah.
But the SECI, that's a Solar Energy Corporation of India, not to be confused with the SEC, which is the Securities and Exchange Commission. So the Solar Energy Corporation of India were not finding buyers. Why? Because the price was so high. So if you have to sign a power sales agreement or a power purchase agreement, you have to find buyers. And who were these buyers? They were not BJP except for one. Union territory, that's Jammu and Kashmir, these were not controlled by the BJP. You had Orissa, which was that time headed by Naveen Patnaik. You had Tamil Nadu, which is still headed by M.K. Stalin and the Dravida Munnetra Kazhagam. You had Chhattisgarh, the government of Chhattisgarh was
under Congress.
Under Congress rule, Bhupesh Baghel. But it has been alleged that of the total amount that has been paid by way of a bribe, and that is 265 million or around 2029 crore rupees at the then prevailing
Exchange rate.
Out of this, 228, that's like about 80%, was allegedly went to Indian officials in one state, that is Andhra Pradesh. Now, in the indictment document of the Department of Justice, that person has not been named. He's official number 1. But if you examine the documents of the Securities and Exchange Commission, you know he happens to be Mr. Y.S. Jagan Mohan Reddy, better known as Jagan Reddy. So now you see, they've documented that Mr. Gautam Adani met him in August 2021. Mr. Sagar Adani met him the following month, that's September 2021. The question is, Mr. Jagan Reddy and his political party, which is the YSR Congress, is no longer favorably inclined towards the NDA, the National Democratic Alliance, or the Bharatiya Janata Party. It happens to be Mr. Chandrababu Naidu's government, headed by the Telugu Desam Party, which is in power. Why aren't they taking any action against him? Mr. Bhupesh Baghel is in the Congress Party. Why is the Central Bureau of Investigation, the Enforcement Directorate, the Income Tax Department not taking action against him? Or against Mr. Naveen Patnaik? Or against Mr. Stalin? If they seriously believe, then they also have to take action against Mr. Manoj Sinha, who was the Lieutenant Governor and heading the government of the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. So, something truly amazing has happened. They've actually named, given the amounts. How did they get these amounts? Because when the FBI seized the personal electronic devices of Mr. Sagar Adani on the 17th of March, there were special agents of the FBI, as they call. They had a judicially authorized search warrant. They took custody of his mobile phone and laptop, and in that they found lists of persons who were going to be bribed or had been promised bribes. They had literally an Excel sheet of names. And that's not all. They said they have evidence that Mr. Adani himself took photographs of the search warrant, of the subpoena documents that had been served on his nephew and had been emailed to himself, which is why he has been named, as has Mr. Sagar Adani. So this is really, in my opinion, much more than any journalistic investigation or even that done by, say, a short seller like Hindenburg Research. This is an official body, and what happens, time alone will tell. Now, when Mr. Trump comes back, when Mr. Trump becomes the President of the United States of America, what will happen? Let's look at possibilities. People are asking, why the US? So, I've already clarified that.
But
it's because US investors are involved. Everybody is asking, what can happen? What will happen?
There is also a stream of opinion that because the Biden administration it kind of understands the association between Narendra Modi and Adani, and as a parting shot, it wants to kind of.
Are you saying Mr. Donald Trump doesn't understand it also? I think they both understand exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
But the question is, what will they do? Firstly, after, I mean, it was took some time. As I told you, all this information became public on the 21st of November. About 8 days later, on the 29th of November, for the first time, the government of India reacted. There was a statement made by the spokesperson of the Ministry of External Affairs, Mr. Randhir Jaiswal. What did he say? Let me read it out, the statement. It's a couple of sentences.
Yes.
This is a legal matter involving private firms and individuals and the US Department of Justice. There are established procedures and legal avenues in such cases which we believe would be followed. The government of India was not informed in advance of the issue. Now, that's quite significant. He's saying the government, we didn't know that they were going to take action against him. We haven't had any conversation also about this matter with the US government. Any request by a foreign government for the service of a summons or an arrest warrant is part of what they say of a mutual legal assistance. Both India and the US have mutual legal assistance. This is a matter which pertains to private entities, and the government of India is not legally a part of it in any manner at this point in time.
Okay.
Now does this mean, I'm asking questions now, does this mean that the government of India is distancing itself from Mr. Adani? I mean, anybody and his brother in India knows the proximity of Mr. Gautam Adani and Mr. Narendra Modi.
Yeah.
I mean, Mr. Modi flew in his aircraft before he became Prime Minister in 2013 and 2014. Mr. Modi has traveled the world to dozens of companies where Mr. Adani has been part of that delegation. I mean, it's created problems for India too, but that's another issue. But the point is, now, if you believe the Economic Times, what had been alleged by journalists and journalistic organizations like the OCCRP, now Mr. Adani wants to have a settlement of sorts with the Securities and Exchange Board of India. Miss Madhavi Puri Butch so far hasn't said anything so far. By the way, all the allegations, all the alleged non-disclosure of information, they all violate Indian rules. They all violate Indian rules, and not just the rules that exist in the United States of America. I mean, in India we have a rule which is called, it's a SEBI regulations. It's called the Listing Obligations and Disclosure Requirements. This was put together in 2015, but it was subsequently amended in 2023. Look, at the end of the day, let's be clear. A bribe is a bribe is a bribe. An offer to bribe is a bribe, or an offer to bribe, whether it's in India or the US or anywhere else. So this, in my opinion, we'll have to wait and watch what happens. Yes, there are mutual legal assistance agreements, we have extradition treaties, we may or may not have to go through the Interpol to serve the warrant, but the question is, what happens within India? All the allegations that are contained in the DOJ's documents, they violate Indian laws also, like the Prevention of Corruption Act of 1988, like the Competition Act of 2002, because you are preventing competitors, Money Laundering Act, the PMLA, the Prevention of Money Laundering Act of 2022. You know, this legal portal called Leaflet, they quoted legal experts from the chambers of Anurag Katharki, and they said there are various options. The prosecution could be deferred. There could be a plea bargain. What is a plea bargain? Suppose you are charged with five charges. Yeah, there are 5 charges against you. You admit to 3 and you don't admit to 2. So you are not arrested. You got away after payment of. I mean, this is a hypothetical case I'm giving you. That's like a plea bargain. So we don't know what will happen. We just have to wait and watch. And even if we have a new person to head the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Department of Justice, and the Securities and Exchange Commission of India, we don't know whether this legal process, what will happen in what will be its trajectory, what speed it will move, when it will move. And remember, Mr.
But
Trump.
you still feel, in spite of this doubt about the kind of period by which there will be concrete action, you still feel that this is a very definitive blow for Adani.
That's my personal view. And it's not just a blow on Adani, it's Adani's mentor, the Prime Minister of India, Mr. Narendra Modi. Whether you like it or not, it's going to have an impact. I mean, look, the first week of the winter session of Parliament was washed out. The Speaker of the Lok Sabha, Mr. Om Birla, the Chairperson of the Rajya Sabha, Mr. Jagdeep Dhankar, they just didn't allow the opposition to raise this issue. But the opposition is not united.
Yeah, the opposition also seems to be not united and not only very keen on pursuing it, barring the Congress. And even in the Congress, I think it's only Rahul Gandhi.
The one person who has gone on record is the Rajya Sabha MP belonging to the Trinamool Congress, Derek O'Brien, Mr. Derek O'Brien. He said Parliament should not be hijacked on a single issue. I have no doubt, and this has got nothing to do with what Mr. O'Brien or the Trinamool has said. Why are you surprised that Mr. Adani does not have friends in the opposition? Mr. Adani has friends everywhere, across the world. Yeah, he may be particularly close to Mr. Modi. That doesn't mean he doesn't have friends in ruling, in important circles in Maharashtra, in Bengal. Look, even Revanth Reddy. Now Mr. Revanth Reddy says, I don't want your 100 crore rupees for this educational institutions.
Right.
I don't. He has friends in communist-ruled Kerala, in Tamil Nadu, you name the place, and Mr. Adani has friends. So why should you be surprised that he has good friends in the Congress party? And those good friends in the Congress party are not exactly overjoyed that Rahul Gandhi is raising this issue. Mr. Rahul Gandhi said, please arrest him, arrest him. I mean, he said, if you can arrest chief ministers like Hemant Soren and Kejriwal, why don't you arrest him? So let's see what happens.
So, but is there a possibility that the Donald Trump administration, when it comes to power, will upset this whole stream of legal procedures?
They can delay it. They can arrive at a plea bargain, as I mentioned to you. They can defer the process. Anything is possible, but I'm not an expert on American law. There are people who are saying this is the. I mean, there are more than one member of the sort of right-wing ecosystem suddenly have become anti-American. I mean, they forget Donald Trump had to appear in court. They're saying Joe Biden has pardoned his son Hunter Biden, but he had to appear in court, isn't it?
Right.
So the point is, the American system and the Indian system, how it works or does not work, time alone will tell. And we have to wait and see what SEBI does. What the Securities and Exchange Board of India, and led by its chairperson, Mrs. Madhavi Puri Buch, who currently has been facing a lot of flack because her income tax return and that of her husband was leaked, and then the Congress, the spokespersons of the Congress like Pawan Khera and Praveen Chakrabarti, a series of press conferences, and Rahul Gandhi himself, are saying, there are clear conflicts of interest. So a lot of muck has happened. So how long, how far Mr. Adani and his mentor will remain insulated from what's happening?
That is something which we have to wait and watch.
Correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But in the meantime, Paranjoy, I presume that you will also be continuing your exposés on this nexus.
Sir, not I. I'm facing 6 cases of defamation. 5 in Gujarat and 1 in Rajasthan. There are a whole lot of people. I have nothing to do with what's happening in the Financial Times or the Guardian or Bloomberg or Reuters or the Economic Times. The Economic Times wrote about how, 2 individuals associated with Azure Power were probably the whistleblowers. I mean, their conscience pricked somewhere and they decided to, spill the beans.
But do you see that
the
Economic Times, the kind of signal that we are getting from the Economic Times coverage, is that a larger Indian media phenomenon? Is the Indian media really looking at this issue objectively in a manner that is.
Look, the media is never objective. The media has never been objective. In recent times, a very large section of the media can be described, to use Ravish Kumar's words, the Godi media, the media that is,
on the lap.
Yes, on the lap, and I mean, not critical of the government. So you can say the Economic Times has brought out this report and that report. Arijit Burman in Mumbai has mentioned this, and somebody else has mentioned this. At the Times of India, the day that statement is made by Adani Green Energy to the stock exchanges, they virtually reproduce that handout.
Right.
And they say, no, we haven't been charged under the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. When Mr. Adani makes a statement like this in Jaipur, all that is prominently displayed, and the stock market prices go up. But what is written in the third and the fourth paragraph is there
Handout.
that he also acknowledges that there are allegations of conspiracy, fraud, bribery, etc., etc.
So, from the way I see it, Paranjoy, the thing is that you say that that the legal process and the concrete action in terms of penal measures may take a long time or may happen soon in the US. But
the wheels of justice grind very, very slowly. The arm of the law is very, very long, the long arm of the law, whether it's in the US or in India. And as you know, and I don't have to tell you, the law favors the rich and the powerful.
Well, I mean, anyway, the point is, in spite of that, the law favors the rich and powerful. Paranjoy is convinced that this is a very definitive blow on the Adani shenanigans, and he feels that he's of the opinion that the kind of expose that has taken place in the US federal system, a legal system, that is going to impact both Adani and his mentor Narendra Modi in the long run. He doesn't know when it is going
in
to
the
happen.
medium term.
In the medium term.
To use John Maynard Keynes' famous words, in the long term, we are all dead.
Yeah, in the medium term. Okay. So in the long run, in the long term, we are all dead. But in the medium term, there will be some definitive strikes on this. This is only the beginning, according to Paranjoy. Of course, Paranjoy has been following the Adani issue very carefully, very diligently as an investigative journalist for very many years now. And I'm sure that he will continue with that process. And of course, we at the AIDEM and the Risala Update will continue to interact with him and pick his brains from time to time.
Thank you so much, Venkatesh.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I wish all the viewers of this program on AIDEM all the very best. Thank you. Namaskar.